Hi all, Benny from East West, bringing you another video in our Python for Finance for Python Beginners series. So this video is a remake of the original. I made a glaring error that will stop me from actually being able to run the code. So I'll fix that, and I'll also show you how we can add in some technical indicators to our data. So let's start in the Python codes folder and just bring up a new notebook as I've done here. So I'll start by filling in some headings. So we do need to perform a simple step here, and that is pip install. So if you haven't already done it, then these are the libraries that need to be installed. So if you've already installed yfinance, you can comment that one out. But if this is your first time around, you will need to install the TA library. So all we need to do is run that cell. Now, I've already installed it, of course. You may not have. It should install it for you by doing this step. I can just comment that out. I'll leave it there for future reference, but that is something that I neglected in my original video, and of course the code won't run if you don't have these things installed. Okay, now that's done, the first thing we need to do is to actually import the libraries, and there are 3 of them for this program. So we import yfinance as YF, we import pandas as PD, and import TA. So we run that cell, and now we just need to import some data. So let's just use Apple from the start of 2022. So once you've typed that code out, you can run that cell by either clicking run here, or you can just hold shift and enter, and that will also run the cell. Okay, now let's add in some moving averages. So this is where we use the TA library. So first we have to add columns into our data frame. So first we need to name the data frame that we're adding to. In this case, we've called our data frame price. And then we need to name the column that we are going to add. So in this case, I'm just going to make a column called SMA, and then we must say equals. So now we call the TA library by just typing in TA dot. And here we're using a trend indicator, so we need to type in trend. Now we are using a simple moving average, so we need to type in SMA underscore indicator. And then we just need to open some brackets, some parentheses. So at this point, we need to tell the program what we want the average of. So in this case, we want the average of the close from the data frame we made called price. And we also need to tell the program what the length of the average is. So here I'm just going to use 20. So that's it for the line of code. But let's also put the EMA in. All we have to do is copy the line above and paste it. But of course we need to change to the S to E here and the S to E here to get the exponential moving average. So now we've done that, let's run that cell. And let's also call up the data frame. So now we can see that those 2 moving averages have been added in, and their data is now available to be called upon. So next, let's quickly look at the help function. So let's type in help, and then in brackets ta.trend.sma underscore indicator. Now when we run this cell, we get some information about the indicator, but also we can see what arguments the line of code needs to function. So by default here we get the close, and we get a window of 12. We can also fill in the NA values, but don't use it. So we can see that the program, if we just call up the head of the data frame, the first 20 lines, we can see here that the program returns a NaN value until 20 days have elapsed, as it obviously can't work it out until 20 days has gone by. So with that option, that fill NA option, don't use it because it'll populate the column with the wrong data. So at this point, I'll draw your attention to the documentation for the TA library. Now, I'll put this link in the video description, but it also may be worth pasting the link into your code like this for future reference. So here we are on the page. We can see on the left over here we have various indicators that are designated as momentum, volume, volatility, trend, and other indicators. I think there's something like 130 different indicators in this library, so there's plenty to choose from. Now, to search for one, we just type into the search box up here. So let's think about adding in, well, if we just want to search, let's search the SMA. And we can see here that will take us to the simple moving average. But let's now add in the RSI. So I'm going to type RSI into the search box and bring up the documentation for the RSI. So here we have the documentation for the RSI, which is a momentum indicator. Now, importantly, we can see the parameters that the program needs in order to execute the code. You can see those here. We don't need that, of course. So let's now go back to the code. Now again, we can call up the RSI through the help function rather than going to the documentation. Now remember though, the RSI is a momentum indicator and not a trend indicator, so we need to type in help ta.momentum.rsi and then we can run the cell. So we can see here a bit more information about the RSI, as well as a clickable link to Investopedia, but importantly it tells us which arguments it needs here in order to execute. So here we need the close and the window, and once again I would steer clear of the fill NA. So now let's add the RSI into our data frame in the same way we did the moving averages, and we will use the standard period of 14. So now let's just run that cell, and now let's just call up the data frame. And we can see here now the RSI has been added in. Now, if we were going to use this information for a system, then all the rows that contain NAN values are redundant. So let's go ahead and drop those out, as well as tidying up the data. And we do this by typing in price equals price.drop NA. So that would just tell the program to get rid of all these NAN values, whichever row has them, and then we'll just round the numbers down as well. So we can run that cell, and now let's just call up our data frame and see what we've got. Okay, so that looks a little bit neater and tidier. So that's it for this video, but I will leave you with some homework. Why don't you go ahead and try yourself to add in the ROC, the rate of change indicator, the TSI, the true strength indicator, and the ADX, the average directional index indicator. Now, see how you go with that, and in the next video we'll step over how we did it. Thanks for watching.